Okay, fam, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the Bitcoin miners and also the market performance today, as well as some earnings. So with that being said, let's get it. Okay, so bird's eye view here. I just want to go over some of the different crypto-related plays with y'all, so you can see just how great of a day it was today. Coinbase up 7.3%. MicroStrategy has an eye-popping 16% gain, so that's crazy. But then again, I'm not surprised. I mean, Bitcoin going up. Every time that happens, MicroStrategy goes up with it. I'll have to go over this a little bit deeper in a later video, but I am pretty sure that MicroStrategy is actually a front-running indicator for Bitcoin getting ready to go up. We saw some kind of divergence in the last cycle. I'll go over that in a separate video once I have more info for you guys. So miners here, you can see a lot of them were up roughly about 5% on the day. clsk was up a massive almost 11%. Cipher was up over 14%. And if I go down here to crypto, you can see it did a complete U-turn. It was sitting at about 59K yesterday. We went up to 63,000 today. And even the Grayscale trusts are starting to show very subtle signs of life. But again, you guys got to remember when it comes to crypto, you got to remember one thing, okay? It always starts out slowly and then suddenly and then rapidly, okay? So crypto slowly starts moving up, what I like to refer to as the markup phase. Then it starts kind of increasing its pace going up, and then all of a sudden you just have like an absolute explosion where everything's doing 2, 3, 5, 10x's in a single week, and it's just absolute madness. Okay, and it comes out of nowhere and it catches most people by surprise. But this is always how it starts. It starts out slow, and then it becomes more obvious. Then people that are early, I should say, want a piece of the pie, and then eventually you get this massive explosion in price once the retail FOMO comes in. Okay, so I want to talk about earnings. So here's the big three. All right, so we got JP Morgan, and I'm not going to go too heavy into earnings going forward in time, but I think that these, like today's earnings, are important because, again, we're at the start of the earnings season. The companies that had to report earnings today are massive companies. Okay, they are essentially the largest of what they do. So we have JP Morgan for number one. Okay, so they had earnings today. You can see Friday 11th of October. So they did actually have a beat today. Okay, they had a beat on both fronts. Why does this matter? Well, this is important for two reasons. Number one, because banks generally banks usually benefit from the Fed cutting rates. Okay, banks and REITs or real estate usually suffer a lot as a result of the Fed hiking rates. So the fact that so there's that. Okay, so number one, financials always benefit from Fed rate cuts, okay, because it makes it cheaper for them to loan money out to other people that can then borrow the money to go do whatever they want. Okay, auto loans, home loans, whatever, you name it. So the fact that we just saw the first rate cut and something like JP Morgan is still beating on their earnings after dealing with Fed hikes for almost, what is it, two years and some change at this point, in my opinion, is a serious green flag for Q4 bullish seasonality. And respectively, we had a massive move up here. So just on the daily time frame alone, you can see this absolutely stupid move we had. Massive. I mean, 4% may not seem like a lot for a lot of people, but with a stock like JP Morgan, this is a lot. Okay. I mean, take a look at all these candles. When's the last time we saw a candle like this? We have not seen a candle like this that was this large. That was a green one basically this entire time, maybe with the exception of this one back here in August. But the fact that they're beating earnings and the Fed's cutting rates, in my opinion, is a green flag. So next one here is Wells Fargo. Again, another massive bank. There was a beat here on earnings, but a slight miss on the revenue. According to TradingView, you can see it was only 36 million. Again, guys, these guys operates in the tens or hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. 36 million is nothing. And the market's pretty much brushed it off accordingly. Okay. So you can see the massive gap up plus the whole move here, the entire move roughly about 6%. Again, that is a lot for a bank because these larger banks, again, the larger the market cap, the smaller the move, the smaller the market cap, the larger the move. Usually how it goes, unless you have something like MicroStrategy, NVIDIA, Coinbase, or Tesla. So the fact that this even moved that much to me is extremely bullish. And the other one, I'm sure we're all familiar with at this point because again, they have the spot ETFs, is BlackRock. Okay. So BlackRock also beat earnings by a substantial amount. And as a result of BlackRock beating earnings and going into the post, you can see it moved up 3.3%. Again, BlackRock is the largest asset manager in the world, as far as I know. I mean, they have like some $10 trillion in assets, and their stock is almost $1,000 a share. So the fact that it moved up that much in one day is very impressive, to say the least. Okay, so again, earnings season is important. In my opinion, earnings, the Fed cutting rates, and the presidential election being behind us are going to be the catalyst that moonshot us into the parabolic phase of the crypto bull run over the next 3 to 15 months, and also the Q4 bullish seasonality for stocks, which I think is going to continue through next year. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the miners. So I'm going to start with Mara. Again, we're kind of just sitting along this trend line. We did have a green day on Mara, which is nice. Again, we haven't had a whole lot of those, but in my opinion, I think that we're pretty much overdue for some green in crypto at this point. So the thing I want to point out here that I don't know if you guys can see this, but you have a left head, or left shoulder, a head, and then you have a kind of a right shoulder. I guess this whole thing could be considered to be a right shoulder. If that was the case, and again, we kind of want to see this thing break out of here. And there's no guarantee this has to play out, but an inverse head and shoulders has a very high probability as a bullish move. So I'm pretty confident this will play out. Let's say maybe it happens sometime in the second half of October. The breakout would push Mara, the target for Mara in this case would be all the way up at $22. So pretty massive move there. Again, you kind of have the price coming down and the RSI and the MACD coming up. That's known as bullish divergence. That's usually a leading indicator that the market is about to move in the opposite direction, which in this case would be bullish. Okay, so you can see the more obvious head and shoulders here on the weekly. So you got your shoulder to head, shoulder, and then the breakout target, which again is above the previous resistance. So the bigger picture I'm looking at here is the fact that we are kind of sitting at the bottom of this massive microphone looking pattern. Again, this is a bearish pattern because it's rising, but I'm not expecting this to actually play out until probably at least, I would say, somewhere around maybe March, April of next year. In terms of the bearishness, I'm not expecting the bearishness of it to play out until roughly about the middle of next year or around the start of Q1, something like that. Because again, Bitcoin is always the first one to go up. It always goes, the miners and anything Bitcoin related, MicroStrategy always go up with it. So I'm expecting that to take place first. Kind of a chop, sideways consolidation, something like this before an eventual dump. Again, you can see MicroStrategy didn't do, or not MicroStrategy, Mara didn't do exactly like the whole chop thing, but you kind of got it here and then a pullback, and then you have, well, more so a blow off top and then just a straight dump. So this one would have actually been quite hard to predict. But yeah, I mean, it should be pretty obvious when, and it may not be so obvious for some people, but when you start getting candles that just like get like stupidly, I mean, just ridiculously stretched above the EMAs, and this is a pretty strong indication that this is coming. When you see that the price is like some 40, 50, 60% above the top EMA here, which in this case is the blue one, that should be pretty strong of an indication that we are about to have a blow off top. Okay. Again, the EMAs are basically a retracement tool. Okay. They are the median of the price action. So generally speaking, when they get overextended to the upside or the downside, they always eventually return to the median, which is the EMAs. When you get really, really overextended from the EMAs, like in this case, that's, to me at least, a pretty strong signal that, hey, maybe it's time to think about taking some profit off the table. Okay. And you can see the RSI reflects this down here as well. The RSI was more green over here, but you had kind of this bearish divergence, so higher highs, lower highs, that kind of thing. But the RSI did indicate that we were seriously overblown at that point, and there was a pullback coming, and that's exactly what happened. So I'm expecting the price to kind of bob around and bounce around in between these two lines here until probably about April, May of next year, when we should get some kind of mid-cycle correction. Altcoins theoretically should go up roughly about Q1 of next year, but this these miners should be going up based on what history says. They should be going up somewhere between now and probably topping out somewhere January, February timeframe, something like that. So we could see a lot of bouncing around in between here. The thing I want to point out is every time we did touch the bottom of this microphone pattern, we usually did bounce up off of it. Whether the bounce was immediate or not, that depends on which time we bounced off of it. So, I mean, it's pretty close to the kind of macro bottom trend line here. Again, that's the price potential here is pretty sweet in my opinion. I mean, if you didn't want to buy them outright and you say screw that, I want to do cash secured puts because I think it's going to drop lower. Well, okay, fair enough. But just from the current price to the previous swing high here, 135% move. Again, it's possible Mara could go way higher than this. Mara could go to like 60, 70, $80, anything like that is possible. So absolute bottom move here, I'm expecting somewhere between 1350 to, I would say, maybe 15. Again, I don't think Mara is going to be sitting at this white line for very much longer. I think it is going to lift here soon. But, you know, for the ultra bears out there who think, oh, yeah, it's not going to go anywhere. Well, worst in my most bearish case scenario, I would say $15 by February. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, Mara is probably going to be at like $40, $50, $60 by February. So resistance here, 18.25 to 20. And then, of course, I already gave you the swing highs. So you got roughly about 29 to 33 up there. And if I were just to say, okay, Mara could top out by February, let's say of next year, then that would put it pretty much right about exactly where I said, roughly about $50 to $60, somewhere in there. Just show you guys the previous peak here. You can see Mara was actually all the way up at $85 at the peak of the last cycle. So that should tell you what's possible. I may even be undershooting the estimate here by saying it's only going to be at 60. All right, so I'll give you guys the measured moves here. So we're looking at roughly about 44% and 134% respectively. That doesn't include the $60 target. Riot, this thing is, in my opinion, poised to explode to the upside. You can see we're about to get that golden cross again. These don't happen very often on the weekly. They're pretty rare, unless you get a lot of chop. But the last time that we actually got a golden cross where the golden cross happened underneath the EMA, this one was at the EMA. So the one that was underneath the EMA pretty much signaled the bottom here. Again, we did have a double bottom here, but you can see the price absolutely moonshot from 30 or roughly about $4 to almost $20. So a nice juicy 5x there. And again, we are about to get the break of that downtrend on the RSI, and we got the golden cross already. Okay, so it's in the buy zone. Buy zone roughly about $7 to $10. And then we have 1835 to 2080. We may or may not pick up any more Riot before the end of the bull run. Again, we do have these call debit spreads on some of the miners, so we got some on Riot already. We put those in right about pretty much where the price Riot's at right now. Maybe not exactly that price, but pretty close to it, and also some for CLSK. But regardless, I mean, if you just chose to do options on this or bought the shares outright, there should still be some price appreciation. Again, I cannot tell you guys what to do. Crypto is risky. Do your own research, all that jazz. So 188% move here. HUD 8. So this one's kind of in the middle of no man's land. Haven't had the golden crosses yet, but eventually we probably will. So buy zone down here, $4 to kind of that $9 area, 1750 to 2270 is going to be that swing high up there. HUD 8, just so y'all know, the top for that one was at like $80 as well, just like Mara and Riot. So maximum swing move here, 220%. Now, if you wanted to hold the miners up to like, say, this kind of upper level here, kind of that $30 range, then, you know, of course you can always do that. You can even hold it higher than that if you want to. If you have this charting software, which again, you can just go to TradingView and you can sign up for a membership. It's, I think what we pay is like $15 a month or something like that. It's not that expensive. So, and you can kind of set all this up for yourself and see, you know, kind of what the charts would look like and see like, oh yeah, this thing's been going up for 12 weeks straight. Maybe I should take some profit. Well, you would have the software now to basically look at that. And again, the EMAs are a very common tool that traders use. Lots and lots of traders use supply and demand zones, where support and resistance, and something like an EMA or an SMA, which is a simple moving average. Lots of people use the MACD, lots of people use the RSIs, so you can be sure that there's probably thousands, if not hundreds and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of traders and analysts out there in the world using these exact same tools. All right, so cipr. Again, kind of stuck in no man's land. We got that bull flag. It does look like it wants to break out. The target for that thing is 510 per share. Again, we're not quite up there, but I mean, we're only $1 away. These miners can move very fast out of nowhere. So 2 to 260, and then roughly about 5 to 550. And again, in my opinion, we're not even at the top for Bitcoins. So this was kind of just in my opinion, I think this was kind of a tasting of what the miners are going to do in the future. This kind of $8 price point up here for cipr was kind of just a tease, if you ask me. All right, so from support to resistance, if you got in or if you're still planning on getting in, would be roughly about 102%, and then you have as much as 190%. btbt, this one's kind of chopping sideways. This one loves to do this. Personally, I mean, you could buy this in hopes that it goes to $30. I would want to give myself an asymmetrical bet and buy down here, but to each their own. So $165 to $2 at support, $420 to $490 at resistance. I mean, if you guys wanted to buy this now, you could. I mean, the maximum downside move to get back to these lows down here, roughly about 47%. So, I mean, you got to strategize according to what you want. So 193% move here. And again, btbt did have a massive, massive blow off top on the last cycle, $33.72. And this thing got very overextended from the EMAs by 200. Actually, I'm not measuring that right. Sorry, y'all. Let me take this from the blue EMA so we can get a more accurate measure here. 156% above the EMAs. Very similar thing to what we kind of saw with Mara. Okay, bitf. So we're kind of messing around in this triangle pattern. Again, this is going to be bullish or bearish. In my opinion, it's going to be bullish. I mean, the timing lines up for it perfectly. So I'd say as low as 160 to as high as 230 is kind of going to be your buy zone there. 290 to roughly about 360, maybe even as high as $4 is potential profit targets here. So if I was giving you guys the maximum moves here, we're looking at roughly about 122 to as much as 140%. And again, bitf is did have a pretty juicy all-time high. It's roughly about 5x the current price, and it's possible it could even do a new all-time high. I mean, this one didn't really go that high in the last cycles, so whereas you had something like Hut 8 and Riot that went to $80 from like a couple dollars, so that should tell you something. Okay, iren. This was a requested one, so we're going to do this from now on. This is in the buy zone. Again, you got series of higher highs and higher lows here. That indicates that this thing is in a bull trend overall. So support here, $6 to roughly about $7.70. It is in the buy zone. Again, the best ideal situation here is to buy in the support zone and sell in the resistance zone, but I can't tell you guys what to do. If you don't want to buy here, you don't have to. That's your choice. So resistance $13.50 to $18, and if I go back to these all-time highs here, yeah, this thing came out at the end of the last bull run, so I'm thinking that $28 is not actually even the real all-time high here. It could be much higher than that. That would just be a guess. I can't guarantee it, but based on what I'm seeing here, I think that likely $28 is not really the true peak. Okay, so 195%. Lastly, clsk. This one has just been this one has been getting absolutely dogpiled. It's kind of amazing actually that this thing has even gone down that much, considering it was sitting at $16 to $20 for literally months and months and months and months. But you know what they say: what goes down must go up, right? Okay, so we're literally at the perfect buying area. And again, I can't say with 100% certainty this is going to be the bottom, but it looks highly likely that that's the case. So again, the ideal buying area is somewhere between 870 to, I'd say, maybe 10.5. Again, I don't think clsk is going to be sitting at this white line by December. I think it's going to be way, way above this white line by then. Based on the timing, based on the macroeconomics, based on the way that crypto has been moving as a whole, based on Trump being pro-crypto. I mean, need I say more? The elections, all that jazz. We got earnings. That's a bullish catalyst. I can go on and on about this, but you guys get my point. So in my opinion, anywhere as of right now, anywhere kind of between $9 to about 12. Well, let's see here. Yeah, I'd say anywhere between $9 to about $12.30 is probably a pretty good area to buy. So you got that $12.30 to kind of that $14 area support, $21.40 to I'd say about $24.25 as that kind of peaking potential there. So giving you guys the measured move here is roughly about 153 and 167%. Again, CLSK did actually top out much higher in the previous cycle. It topped out at $43 per share. Excuse me, the options market is even saying that it could go very, very high in comparison to this previous peak back here. The options market, and I can take a look at that in a minute, is saying that it could actually go as high as 37. So, and you can see we got a pullback in September, kind of October timeframe. But then as we got closer to November, what happened? November to January, CLSK just took off like an absolute rocket to the moon. And another thing I want to point out here is this possible tweezer bottom. Again, these are red candles, so not great, but you guys know what I've said about the tweezer bottom, tweezer top. Usually when you get the tweezer bottom at the bottom of a move with these long wicks to the downside, that's a reversal indicator to go up. Whereas when you get the long wicks to the upside or tweezer top, ideally these should be two candles right next to each other. But in this case, you can see we had four of them back here. That would have been a potential indicator that maybe this thing's about to go down. Okay. All right. So CLSK. And I want to show you guys this in the options market. And we've talked about this. Okay. All right. So let me go over to options real quick. Go over here to sell call, because again, if you have these shares already, you're trying to get out of your position. Ideally, you would either want to sell them to the market directly with a market sell or a limit sell of some kind, or you would want to do options to get out via a sell call or what's known as a cover call. So going all the way up to these top prices here, look at this. You have open interest January 2025 at $37 with 13,000 contracts. Okay. 35, 6,000. You have 32 at 3,000, 12,000 at 30, or 13,000, 2,600 at 27, 17,000 contracts at 25, 6,200 contracts at roughly about 22 and a half. And again, this is kind of gives you a picture of the overall market sentiment, because a lot of traders, you can see how the volume dies down here. So 2,600 in March, 600 at 28, and then you got 45 at 27. Then you have 181 at 26. And if I go back a little bit in time, go back to December here, we can kind of take a look at the price here. 4,300 at 35, 2,500 at 30, 4,600 at 25. You have 1,400 at 23. So pretty much the entire market with these tens of thousands of contracts and options, they're all expecting CLSK to be somewhere between $25 to $37 for the most part by January of next year. That literally is a telling indication of future market sentiment. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.